Hey guys, I'm Jackie Brubaker. I'm an author, a motivational and career coach, and host of That Girl the Podcast. Each week, I bring on a leader in their field to talk about how to stop making excuses and how you can start living your lifelong dream. That Girl the Podcast is based on That Girl the Novel, which is on Amazon to download or buy the paperback of. To find books, courses, and products from our episodes, check out the shop page at thatgirlcoaching.com. You can also follow us on Instagram at Jackie Brubaker and at That Girl the Podcast and our Patreon page.
Welcome, Coach T, to That Girl the Podcast, also known as The Date Coach on Instagram, one of my favorite accounts to follow. He's always putting up such amazing dating advice. We are going to talk about you, how you became a coach, and we're going to talk all about dating today and how to better date. So I always like to let people introduce themselves in brief because I feel that you can always do a better job than I can. So tell people who you are.
Why, thanks, Jackie. I'm so happy to be here. I love the podcast and I listen to it all the time.
Thanks. Yay.
So I'm Coach T. Anthony. A lot of people call me Coach T. I help men and women maneuver through the often chaotic jungles of online dating. And I take the frustration out of their frustration. And I try and get my clients to the finish line. Yes. So I help all kinds. I help men and women, divorcees, anybody who is having issues with the dating apps. That's what I do. So
amazing. There's a lot of people who need help. I am probably one of them too. I'm not a big dating app person, but I have recently dipped my toe into it again. And I'm like, all right, let's see. How did you become a dating coach?
It was by accident, really. I mean, I was just good. We have to go back in time to America Online.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. Before the dating apps, America Online had chat rooms. So I was always able to go into these chat rooms and get a date. And a lot of people back then would stay for hours in these chat rooms. And I wasn't about that. I just wanted to get in, meet someone, schedule a coffee date, and get out. So I was pretty good at that. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of helped my friends and showed them how to do it. And then online dating came out and I was like, oh, this looks interesting. So I started on Match.com and I started getting a bunch of dates on there. And then I just started helping my friends out. And then I was like, whoa, this is getting a little time consuming. So then I just started charging $50 a pop to help them with their profile. And, I was in the corporate world at that time. And after about the third time I got laid off, I decided, okay, there might be something in this. Mm-hmm. And unless you want to keep getting laid off and moving to a different city for another job, I think maybe we need to take a look at this and see if we can, make it go. So 2011, fast forward to that time, I decided the last time I got laid off, I was like, that's it. I'm going full force into this. Started to beef up my Twitter, my social media. And that was it. I just started becoming a dating coach and doing it professionally now.
So what is it like to work with a dating coach? Like, what would you start with someone to help them be a better dater?
Well, we start with a discovery call first, and it's about 30 to 45 minutes. And there's two prongs involved in that call. Will we be a good fit? Mm-hmm. Are you coachable? And are you ready to get back into dating? So a lot of times I find out after 30 minutes and they find out themselves through the questions that they're not ready. Mm. They're still dealing with a trauma or a breakup, and they're actually getting forced by friends and family and saying, you should get back out there. And they don't realize that until we have this call. And then, if it is trauma related, I can always refer them to like Alana Pratt or a Susan Winter, or I have a handful of people that I can refer them to. Mm-hmm. But if we do work out, it just depends. I have two things that I offer is a profile review. So if you're already in online dating and you just want to clean it up, I'll go in, surgically remove stuff, tell you, that's basically what I do, surgically remove things that could trigger people to swipe left.
Right.
And it's a lot psychological, within a profile of what we look at. So I can do a profile review, or there's a 30-day boot camp. And the 30-day boot camp is basically just for someone who maybe was married for 30 years. They heard about online dating. Their kids showed them how to, hey, look, mom, dad, look who I swiped right on. Yeah. Or they're out with their girlfriends or their friends, and they've seen it. They've heard about it. They don't really know much about it, but they heard that there's a lot of frustration involved.
Right.
So then they come to me and say, I just need to know the nuts and bolts from A to Z. And then I basically take them through a boot camp. So after that boot camp, if they find someone, they date someone and it doesn't work out, they have now the tools to go back and do it all again without having to come back. And, so that's the difference between a profile review and maybe a boot camp. I kind of teach them everything that I know, so they could actually teach it if they wanted to.
Okay, cool. So what are some of the things that are absolute no-nos to put on a profile? Like you said, there are just things that people are going to swipe left on and just be like, whoa, that was weird. Why did you put that?
Yes. Well, let's go back 10 years ago. We were spending about 10 to 15 seconds on each profile 10 years ago. Now it's 4 to 6 seconds, because the TikToks and all that is just constant swiping.
Attention.
We're just bombarded with. I can go down the TikTok rabbit hole, and 45 minutes later, I'm like, oh my God, what just happened?
Right.
So what you need to make sure that your pictures are showing just you, or a hobby that you enjoy. Now, a lot of people will put pictures of them on a motorcycle, or them on a horse, or them traveling the world, and they're not a world traveler. They don't own a horse, and they hate motorcycles. But psychologically, a lot of guys would be like, oh, she's looking for a biker, swipe left. Oh, she rides horses. I'm allergic to horses, swipe left. So you want to keep stuff out of your profile that could trigger somebody to swipe left on you, when basically all you were doing is saying, well, that was just a great picture of me on that motorcycle at the Harley Davidson rally.
Yeah.
I don't really even care about motorcycles, but you're portraying that you do, and you're saying, hey, do I want a guy with a motorcycle? We don't know. And we're not going to try and figure it out. We're just going to swipe left.
Nobody's going to try it. That is so true. I mean, if I was to be really, really honest, I'd be like, well, the pictures I put are me watching Netflix. Me enjoying a pretty day outside, really normal things. And I think there's something to it, because I know what I'm swiping. All I see are these guys jumping off cliffs and running marathons and all of this really extracurricular activity stuff. And I'm like, is this all of what you do? Are you a professional athlete? I'm not sure, because this is all I see. And you're really right. Your brain just naturally thinks oh, this person is too this for me.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely the case. And a lot of people don't realize that when they post photos. And I remember I had a client, and she was posting in her bio that she said, I like fishing, I like camping, and I like hiking. And I was like, oh, that's fantastic. When's the last time you hiked? Oh gosh, it's been 20 years.
Right.
Or, fishing. When's the last time you fished? Oh, I haven't been fishing since my dad took me when I was a kid. So I go, so why would you write that? And a lot of people write stuff like that because they've seen it on other profiles. So they think it's a good filler. Right. And the bio is the most important spot. All you really need is a good, depending on what app you're using. If you're on a Bumble per se, all you need is a good 1 or 2 lines that will track somebody in, and then you can talk.
Yeah. I mean, as a woman, when I see the bios that are just these abbreviation of just things, just this, just a list of stuff. I'm like, great. Okay. Well, we're going to move on. If there are no prompts and nothing else describing who you are or what you're looking for, it's just I'm going to get going. What about like with Hinge, I think there are prompts. I haven't used Hinge very much, but with Bumble, I know there are prompts. Do you think that people are actually reading the prompts?
It depends. So if you're on like a say Bumble, they do have prompts.
Mm-hmm.
So I went on 20 virtual dates in 60 days, and
I love that.
So, and I did it because I'm getting my clients to do the same thing. And one client called me out, said, "You're single, right?" I was like, "I am single. Have you gone on a virtual date yet?" And I was like, you know what? I haven't. Let me go do that.
Yeah.
And I did it. And I really did it. Like I went out and we had second, third dates. I mean, it took 60 days, but still 20 virtual dates. And now I know everything about a virtual date. So I don't, when I suggest that to a client, I'm like, I can tell you exactly what's going to happen and what to avoid and what to do and all this. So what was the question?
That's okay. Let's talk about virtual dates because when the pandemic started, I did a little bit of that and I actually loved it. So I'm old school. Maybe I'm just old, but I am super old school. I love talking on the phone. But now with FaceTime, I mean, it's great. There's nothing that I want to do more than stay at my own house, not have to wear pants, and like do a virtual date with someone. Like that is perfect. Like let's just see if we can even like talk to each other, if we're even attracted to each other at all, and like start there. Because the idea of doing it the old way of like, okay, so I've talked to you a little bit. Now I'm going to get myself ready. I'm going to go pay valet and I'm going to show up and like have a drink or a dinner with you. It's just so much work, probably for someone you're most likely not going to want to see again. So I'm loving the virtual dates. What are your suggestions to make a good virtual date? And what should you say or bring up in the first date? And what should you hold off for maybe a second or third date?
I think virtual dates are going to take over the coffee date.
Yes.
I think coffee dates need to go away because I have so many male clients that say, I'm going to go broke if I keep going out on all these dates and keep paying. And I'm like, well, now we have a virtual date. Now you can actually do a couple virtual dates and vet the person properly before, and then see if there's any connection. And if you both agree, now you can go out and, and spend the money, pay on the first date or whatever. But now you at least know there's some kind of connection and the possibility of a second date is much larger. Right. So virtual dates, oh my gosh, it can be so much fun, but the man should set up the date just like a regular date. So that's what I did. We played trivia. We played Cards Against Humanity. We did the DJ thing where I would play a certain amount of a song and see if they can guess it. And I mean,
that's so cute.
I mean, anything. And I did one cooking thing where one date, I sent her my favorite recipe and we both cooked it. And then she sent me her favorite recipe and we both cooked it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Stuff like that.
That's really cute.
It's so cool. It's so easy to do. And I totally love virtual dates. And I think everybody should do it. They should use it, connect with people. And it's just a great time. Now, I will say that, a lot of people are like, well, I guess because I did finally meet someone that I'm talking to.
Oh, good.
So it took 20 dates. And there's a couple that I went out on second and third dates as just friends. We already said, there's no connection, but man, this was fun. You want to do it again? And we still staying in contact. And I'm like, hey, how's your dating life? Have you done anything on virtual dates? And so it can be a whole new world, but it is exciting. And I know a lot of people are like, I'm camera shy. I don't want to get on the camera. I mean, once you do it a few times, it's fine.
Totally. I agree with that.
Yeah. You can't, and for me, I was very anxious and, a little nervous at first, but then I was like, all right, let's do this. We're going to play this today and blah, blah, blah. Or you could even, watch a Netflix show together and say, oh my God, did you see that? There's so many things you can do, but I really recommend them now because, the coffee dates, there's nothing so unromantic than a coffee date, right?
Yes.
Sitting across from each other, drinking coffee. Everybody else is just kind of doing their thing. I mean, it's just,
I know.
it was great. It was great 10 years ago, but we need to move on.
Definitely. Oh my gosh. Do you think that first dates as virtual dates or real dates, should you lead with kind of like the bigger questions that you kind of need to get out of the way, or do you suggest keeping it kind of lighter?
Here's what I suggest. First, do you guys have a connection?
Mm-hmm.
Then, yes, of course, you want to make sure that you're compatible.
Mm-hmm.
So we have chemistry, right? Our conversation is flowing great. Absolutely. You want to throw these questions out in a playful way, because we don't want to demand an answer, right? We want to ask a question to understand what they want, where they're coming from. So you have to keep that in mind. Don't come off demanding, but just kind of come off to understand what you're looking for, because compatibility is key.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, a lot of times though, in the dating apps, you'll see a lot of these questions answered like through the prompts, like
Thank God.
have children, don't want any more. A lot of this is already covered. But you can obviously go into more of it, like, well, how old are your kids, and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you got to get to the nuts and bolts. I think a first date is a great way to find out some information on compatibility, because you don't want to wait until you're a month in and you're all swooming over this person and then find out that you're not compatible. I want kids, they don't want kids, or anything that is compatible or not. You need to find out quicker than.
Well, let's get into if you have been dating someone for a while, because I find this a lot with women, not as much with men, but especially like women in their 20s, maybe like early to mid 30s. They are really into the guy, and then they don't ask the right questions early enough. So now it has been a month and they're like, shoot, I really actually don't know what kind of commitment they're looking for, which is kind of a huge thing. Like, you should know at the very top, be like, hey, cool, I like you. Do you like me? Also, what are you looking for commitment wise? Or with like, do you want to have kids? Like, what does that look like? If they didn't mention in their profile, or if it just hasn't come up. I think a lot of people get scared to then ask those questions now that they are swooning and they're like, oh no, I don't want to lose this person. What is the best piece of advice if you're in that situation?
Here's the way I look at it. Anybody can go on a bad date, right? Or on a date with someone they're not compatible with. But the most successful daters that I know, look at the red flags, ask the right questions, and then remove them from their life before it gets to the point where, oh my gosh, I didn't ask the right questions, or I collected all these red flags because I'll deal with them later. I just love his blue eyes.
Right.
So you really need to, you need to be okay with not having an expectation and trying to connect on an authentic level in the beginning and find out as much as you can. Because we can have all the butterflies in the world, but Mother Nature, when she's doing her thing, I think she's drunk, because she's just throwing arrows at anybody and connecting people. Because how many times have we gone, why didn't I feel something for this person, but I feel something for this person?
Right.
You gotta be kidding me.
Oh, it's the worst.
And Mother Nature's just like, oh, I'm sorry. And she just keeps doing her thing, like sipping on some gin and juice as she's connecting people, not really caring who she's connecting.
Totally drunk Mother Nature. Gosh, that girl.
Right.
I mean, I think, if you're that girl or that guy who is, afraid to ask the questions, I think personally, it's just a matter of like, you need to get stronger in your own self-worth, because if you are already equipped and ready to like come into a date and like ask the real questions and get the real answers. And then also, even if you really like that guy or that girl and you have the chemistry, you have the strength and the self-worth and love to be like, wow, you're awesome. Like, but you are not what I'm ultimately looking for. And that's really hard for people. You know, it's like so hard to meet someone you actually like, and then you do, and then you don't ask the right questions. And then suddenly you're like, shit, what am I now? I'm going to lose this person. I mean, have you had people that you've coached in that situation? Like, what happens? Like, what do you?
Well, they come to me and say, "Oh, I have standards. I have boundaries.
I have boundaries."
Yeah, and I was like, "Oh, that's great because you're going to need them because we want to make sure we're finding the right person for you." And so, of course, it happens. The blue eyes, whatever it is that kind of they glaze over. Well, let me just fall back on that standard and I'll worry about that down the road. And it's like, remember, people are not houses. We're not fixer-uppers. You can't think because they have one or two things that you like, but they really don't, that you're going to be able to instill all that in them down the road. And a lot of people are like, they think they can try. And then they do, and then they fail, and then they try again. And they just never get out of that pattern of trying to create their perfect person, by trying to change them. Right. And it happens a lot, and you just can't do it. You got to date someone who is in there now and not who is, potential.
I was just thinking in their potential.
The potential is your idea of their potential. Doesn't mean they're going to go ahead and commit to that potential. You're thinking, you're creating an entire person in your head and what their potential could be. You're thinking about, oh, we're going to live here. We're going to have, matching Volvos and cute Labrador dogs and a white picket fence. And because he's got the potential, it just doesn't work that way.
And it's unfortunate too, because I think a lot of people, when they meet that really great potential person, and then they realize that they're probably not their person, they've built up this whole dream, and now it's the death of a dream. It wasn't even the death of a real person. It was the death of what you created in your head. You're grieving that. And I think people get confused thinking they're grieving that person they lost, but that person never existed.
No, right. Yeah. And that's basically the ego grieving. That's our ego. The ego created it to begin with. So now our ego is now grieving. It's not us.
Right.
It's our ego. Like, why couldn't I change this guy? Or why couldn't this? Or why couldn't that? And we have to take our logical part of our brain and knock that ego out and say, okay, this is not what we want. We need to move on, and we need to find the person that we are compatible with. So it's not easy.
What would you suggest to people? Let me see how I want to say this. What would you suggest to people who are wanting to get back out there? How do you know they're ready and they're not showing you signs of like, oh, I'm still hung up on my ex? Or, that's an obvious, but like, how do you know they're really ready to be out there and dating?
Well, I ask a lot of good questions.
Tell me some of your questions. I think people really need to like understand for themselves,
I think one question that is important is, are you dating on purpose or are you dating because you're lonely? So depending on what that answer is, if you're dating because you're lonely, then we get into more questions that follow up. Okay, well, why are you lonely? Because I just got out of a marriage and they're still in this cohesive mindset of that role in that marriage as a team. And now they're by themselves, no more team. But now that's why they're lonely. So until you can wake up and say, okay, I am now in my single mindset. And now I want to date on purpose and not because I'm lonely, because I'm so used to that cohesive team, spirit of being in a marriage, and I had my roles and this and that.
Right. That's
kind of when I know. And through questions like that, they pretty much know, like, you know what, I'm not ready for this yet. It's only been 6 months. And a lot of times, they think, well, I can't believe he's already moved on 6 months. And, and I got to remind him that he may have already moved on within the marriage a long time ago.
Yes.
So you have to, and you were still in it. So he probably left a long time ago and you just weren't aware of it.
Absolutely.
So do not compare yourself to him or anybody else. It's your journey, it's your recovery, and it's your trauma that you have to now get through for you to get out there and date properly on purpose, and not because of friends or family or because you're lonely or anything like that.
Agreed. Completely agreed. I think there's a difference between feeling desperate and lonely and then being like, you know what? I love my life. I really love who I am and I feel good. But like, it would be nice to have a partner, but not necessary to get through life because now I have my partner and everything can start.
Well, okay. I do have a tip.
Oh. And
this is a good tip that I love to give everybody because I get the question so much. So the question usually comes to me is, hey, we've been dating for 6 months and I don't know what's happening, where we're at in this thing. Are we committed or whatever? And I'm afraid to bring it up. I'm afraid to ask the question. And I always tell them this little thing that they can do. Basically give them a call and say, hey, I was out with my girlfriends and we were talking about you. And they asked if we were in a committed relationship, and I didn't know how to answer it. Now, if you were there with us, what would you have said? So you lay that back onto him, and a lot of times you're going to get one or two things. You're going to get a pause and be like, "Oh my God, I don't know," or you're going to get, "Babe, come on, babe. Of course we're committed." Yeah. You know, being that that male, and then there you go. Now you know. But if he's pausing and everything like that, then that's when you start to kind of like, okay, well, maybe we need to discuss it. So that's the one thing I came up with. Can't remember who did it. I'm not going to take credit for creating it, but someone came up with it. And I always tell women that that's the easiest way to do it if you're confused and not know what's going on.
And that's such a huge part of it. I mean, I also think, again, just like older, wiser, it's just so obvious. Like if someone isn't really showing up and being a part of, really the relationship, if you don't really feel like they're in it with you, like maybe they're not, and you will feel it. And then I think again, it's like, you've got to get to that strength and be like, am I willing to lose this relationship or this relationship that I think I'm in because I'm going to love myself enough to ask, hey, are we committed? Like, what would you say to us? Like, what would you say to my friends? Would you say like, yeah, we're committed or not? And if they do hem and haw or say no, like, no, I thought this was just casual. Like, you've just got to be like, okay, my heart thought there was more and this is probably not going to go in that direction. And you've just got to be strong enough to say like, okay, cool. Thank you for letting me know. I'm going to date other people too. See what they say.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can't be afraid. Like you said, you have to know, because you don't want to spend another 6 months thinking about it, worrying about it. Because a lot of times when it comes to women will give a man everything they could possibly want in a relationship, which then for the man, they go, well, why should I even bring up commitment? I'm getting everything I want right now.
That is so true. My mom really, really ground that into my head growing up. She was like, I knew a woman who was baking a pie for this man, and she was seeing him and I was seeing him. They were just starting to date. And this woman would bake this guy, who would later become my mom's husband, by the way, a pie every single week and like be this amazing little housewife. But he didn't respect it because she's giving everything to him, thinking, oh, I'll just be so perfect and wonderful and accommodating and he'll just love me. No, he married my mother because she was strong and independent and was like, no, this is what I deserve. And he was like, yes, you do. And yeah, if you are just like, here's everything, I think that's also kind of creepy to someone too, like, yeah, whoa, just, okay.
Well, it's not attractive.
No.
Right. I mean, we want, when a woman has standards and she has boundaries and she puts those standards in place, and if we maybe cross them and she goes, no, this is not how I want to be treated, that's attractive to a man.
Yes. So women, listen to this.
Listen, that is attractive to the right man. Now, if he's a narcissist or controlling idiot, then no, obviously not. But to the right man, oh yeah, it's definitely attractive.
Okay. Last question in regards to like that, because the narcissism, thing, I could bring you on again and we could just talk about that. What about when there's a guy and you're like, no, he's a good guy, but like, he's just going through a lot. I think I hear that a lot. Like, oh, he's just really going through a lot. Like, I've put my boundaries up, I told him what I need. And like the guy just like watches your Insta stories every day, but like is not like in your life. What is that?
Well, a lot of women would say that's called mixed signals. I don't believe in mixed signals. I believe we are either interested or we're not, period. And if we're not, then it doesn't matter how much he looks at your stories or whatever. It's not the behavior that you're looking for, right? Mm-hmm. So take that behavior and go, that's not what I want. So it doesn't matter what that is. It's not what I want. So who cares? Let's not even define it. Let's move on.
Yes. That's really simple, but very, very sound advice. Please listen, ladies, please listen. Coach T, you're so awesome. And I would love to have you back to talk about more dating, relationship stuff in the future if you would like to come back.
Absolutely. This has been fun.
Yay. All right. Tell people how they can find you.
Well, they can find me at The Date Coach on Instagram. That's kind of like my hangout. Kind of like I'm old school. Like that's my bar and people can come up to me and hire me. So, follow me, slide into my DMs, try not to trip and fall. And I'm there to help. So
I love it. He's amazing. You're seriously one of my favorite people to follow. I just love all the stuff you put.
I don't know if you can see, but I'm blushing right now. So thank you so much.
Aw, thank you so much, man. This has been great.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks. I appreciate it.